Hello and welcome to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast, episode 165. 165 hours of us trying to figure out what the hell we think about everything. My name's Michael Forrest.
And I'm Ivanka Majic.
And this week we're going to talk about Jeff Bezos' letter. Bezos' letter, his 2020 letter to shareholders. Is that right? It's April 15th, 2021. Where he talked about all sorts of things, and it was a very it's obviously cleverly written to try and make you doubt everything you hate about Jeff and everything, and his billionaireship and wanting to go to space and live forever and all that kind of thing. Meanwhile, there's people dying, there's terrible things happening. So we're going to have a sort of skim through that and talk about some related sort of workplace stuff, unions, etc.
Etc.
Alternative approaches to this sort of CEOing.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about the power that people have who have got money and can pay us our wages, and how just the money may not really be enough, perhaps, to make you a nice employer, or maybe not. I don't know. Well, and if you're a greedy guts who has to sit on piles of money, then should you be publicly held to account? I think so.
Yes, and this is that public accounting that is so richly needed. How's life?
Life is reasonably pleasant.
As it would be in your island paradise?
Yes, in my hashtag island life. Yes, the garden's looking fantastic.
The fact that the garden is at the top of your consciousnesses.
My daughter has taken to go, because I get up in the morning and I do a garden inspection. And she literally rolls her eyes and goes, there she goes again, looking at her plants. It's like, I've got to see how my seeds are doing. Also, we've now we haven't erected. We paid some people to erect a metal frame over our terrace where we sit outside, where the stone sink from the episode before last is going to live. And now I need to grow things up it to give it green cover.
I see. Have you thought about writing the word booty crudely on the top of your frame, as our next door neighbours have a marquee a couple of doors down? You look out the back, they've got this green marquee in their back garden. It's just got sort of booty scrawled on it. We saw a fox sleeping under it the other day. I don't know. We don't know why.
We wouldn't be able to write on ours. That wouldn't work because it lets rain through.
Yes. Okay.
It's just a frame for plants to grow over.
Got it.
So I'm quite pleased with that. I bought some plants last week and planted them, and we've named them all. We've got Jeremy the vine.
Good one.
We've got Winston the wisteria.
These are very clever.
We've got Heather, who's a fern, which is also entertains me no end, asking about all the plants by name. But yeah, that's really the highlights of the week. How are you, Michael?
Anthropomorphized leaves. I am better than last week. My side effects were short-lived. It was just that one night, really. What was I going to say? The cold showers. Bruce, I saw chipped in with, he's doing the cold showers, but yeah, and I started doing his technique, which is cold. Get in when you first turn it on, so it's cold. Then wait for the water to get warmer. And then
how's that working?
And we've got like but we've got like this shampoo soap bar now. Whoa. Which works really well, so I've been using that. And then crank off the hot water and go wait with the little panicked feeling, then go and try and stay under there for a meaningful enough time that you're like, what did I do? What am I doing? And then you come out feeling very revitalized. So that's still going.
Good.
And then just in my work day, do you know, why does everything take so long? Why does everything take weeks?
Like what?
Just wanted to reorganize my dung goods so that it guides you in a bit more gently, and then I just realized that this week I just realized the paying process was suboptimal, and I needed to learn how to integrate the webhook callback so that I could send good emails when someone pays and when someone misses a thing or when it's about to renew soon, and do all that. And it's also mysterious, and I'm not quite sure what I'm going to get, and it's going to crash, and I'm not going to know. And I've had my head down for so long, trying to get this thing all under test and all nice and robust and all nice and clear, and it's just taking weeks and weeks and weeks. And it was just supposed to be a quick thing I could do.
Maybe you should lower your standards
to try and get some. Well, it's hard though because, well, I don't know. It's like once you kind of know you need to look at something, and then you've been putting off, and then you start looking at it, you go, I know why I was putting this off, and by heck. It's complicated, but it just means that I was like, oh yeah, I need to just put some proper monitoring on this so that a service can send me an email if it crashes, and then I can grab the data, and then I can plug that into my unit test, which I now have, blah 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 blah. Like maintaining a sort of production ready system there's a reason not everyone does this, and they hire a developer and it takes a year longer than they expected, and blah blah blah. So I'm not feeling as agile as I would like, but I am doing a good job on it, I think. So hopefully it all pays off later, but not sooner at this point. But yeah, I'm good. I'm sort of I'm definitely feeling the sun's out. It's still really cold here. Voted yesterday.
Still really cold here.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, we're beyond heating and stuff, but it is definitely unseasonably cold. Can't really go swimming yet. Sea's still too cold.
Yeah.
Normally, we'd be in the sea.
Yeah.
It would be being summer.
Well, it was down to 2 degrees yesterday. So this week, and it's like, what the hell is going on? But yeah, anyway, also
it's called climate change.
It's called climate change.
Sorry, it's called climate catastrophe.
Climate madness.
Disaster.
Climate disaster. Yes.
Climate
also,
cancer.
I defrosted. I took an iceberg out the back of our fridge, which there will be images of now when I cut to music. So here we are talking about Jeff Bezos and his letter to shareholders. Well, it's quite a long letter, so we're not going to read it out.
No.
But what was the bit that you were talking about? We could read out that bit that you read out to me. Where was that? About employees. Okay, so I mean, that are able to take informal breaks. Blah blah blah. Okay. Okay, I'm going to read it.
In Michael and Ivanka's highly professional podcast, I've lost that window.
Oh, Ivanka. Okay, well, I'll read it out.
Ivanka.
I thought it'd be good. Well, I can be Jeff. I'll do it.
I've got it.
What does Jeff Bezos sound like? I don't think I've ever heard him
American.
talk. Have you read some of the news reports?
You might think we have no care for employees. In those reports, our employees are sometimes accused of being desperate souls and treated as robots. That's not accurate. They're sophisticated and thoughtful people who have options for where to work. When we survey fulfillment centre employees, 94% say they would recommend Amazon to a friend as a place of work. Employees are able to take informal breaks throughout their shifts to stretch, get water, use the restroom, or talk to a manager, all without impacting their performance. These informal work breaks are in addition to the 30-minute lunch and 30-minute break built into their normal schedule.
There we go. And what we know is there's that podcast interview, which we'll be linking. Well, we'll link to this letter below, but we'll also link to this podcast interview with one of this Amazon employee that sort of got the ball rolling on some unionization and sort of really got. It's sort of resulted in a lot more people talking about it, including Joe Biden, going yeah, unions. But she was saying, like, she was talking about it in a very different way to that, and saying, like, yes, technically you get these breaks, but they have this measurement, this really sort of oppressive metric called time off task, which is how long are you away from your primary task, and that's measured and used in ways that aren't like transparent with the employees, basically. So everyone's terrified to have any time off task, and it's always being factored into these equations of whether or not to take a toilet break now, or just try and kind of hold out for a bit longer, or use a bottle or whatever, because you've got this sort of like, and that's not to say that every employee doesn't, a lot of employees sort of quite like that it stops people like slacking off, but on the other hand, there's this sort of like there's this sort of mechanical approach to that. Yeah, a lot of data, a lot of metrics, and it's not entirely transparent. And you can't even like talk to a man. You have to kind of go through an app to talk to a manager, and you don't even know who your manager is on one day. So sort of getting any support or any answers from anyone is not great.
So I think one of her examples that she gives. So I think it is undoubtedly true that many people whose alternatives are minimum or below minimum wage jobs, this is a good alternative. Amazon does pay something like $15 something an hour, which is above minimum wage in the States, and so and that is positive and well done and all that jazz. But one of the examples she gives is that you get spot security checks.
Yeah, and that was another.
And she was like, well, is this going to count against my time off task? And they were like, well, it's only 1 minute 30 seconds or something. It was like, well, it's my 1 minute 30 seconds, and I don't know. And so I think part of it is the mysteriousness of how the data is going to be used against you.
Yeah.
And therefore I think must be like really just stressful to have it hanging over you, which I think is where the inhumanity of it comes in.
Yeah, and that wasn't time off task, by the way. That was break. That was coming out of a 30-minute break. Was it going to take out? That I'm going to get frisked at random on my way out of work. But it's the thing. It just goes to the fact that Amazon giving a $15 minimum wage is something that they get to celebrate and say, look, we're better than all these other employers, is just it's a problem with America more than it's a problem with that shouldn't be something to trumpet about, really, given the amount of money Amazon is making and the amount of that Jeff Bezos is personally taking home. We shouldn't really be comparing it to other employers. It should be compared to what the money Amazon's actually making, and then it looks very bad. And then so that's why it's sort of important that they sort of pass, if they raise the minimum wage to $15, then Amazon doesn't get to have that halo anymore in the first place. Yeah. Because really, why are people having to work for an unlivable wage in the first place?
And I think it's the other interesting. Well, I think it is interesting thing about it is the fact that it's a measure. Sorry, I can't get my sentence out now. This is shifting to live means it's harder to edit myself as I go along. I can't rely on Michael cutting out the ums and ahs. But there are other examples as well of what the kind of things they did to stop people unionising.
Yes.
So I understand that they are. I've read, and we've discussed this before, that there are many people who enjoy it and are happy working in these conditions, and that's cool. But they employed some quite dirty tricks, it sounds like, certainly, to stop people being able to gather sufficiently to discuss unions.
Yes.
And people are afraid of joining a union. If you are if you have suddenly bagged this job that pays you more than the alternatives, and the idea of asking for something, if you're afraid that might rock the boat and somehow stop you from having this job or enjoying the benefits, I think that's quite a big risk to take.
Yeah.
To sort of go, excuse me, where's my job?
And they'll. It's funny, like they'll do this. Oh well, these membership fees are expensive, and they'll sort of paint these unions as sort of just wanting your money, and like they're not going to give you anything, and you could use that money for something else. And obviously, like that kind of short circuits the idea that no, if we pay them, then they'll help us get generally paid better, is the idea, and like generally have protections that we don't currently have. I saw this I heard this about, I don't want to say the wrong company, but it was JB Sports or someone like that, but apparently they had like anti-union stuff in the toilets or whatever. It said the membership is $700 a year, and look at the new PlayStation 5 is that, so what would you rather have? And just tactics like that.
Quite sad, really.
Yeah,
I think.
But there's propaganda, but then there's also just a use of their power to sort of actually kind of get a stoplight duration changed because they're Amazon, right? Like,
I mean, you think if your sole purpose is to just make as much money as possible, which Amazon's clearly is. Yeah. They are incredibly good at selling shit and getting it to us and making money, and that's why Bezos gets to sit on a mountain range of money. But it's like, is that really is that enough? I mean, the thing I think about often when I talk about unions, I mean, my English grandpa was very active in unions. He helped, he was a pharmacist. He helped pharmacists become part of one of the unions. Unfortunately, I don't know the details correctly, but he was somebody who encouraged me to join a union. And we talked about things like working conditions in our family, in our home. I mean, one of the things that perhaps people don't realise is like the power of we owe our 8-hour working day to things like the Russian Revolution because it scared people. The fact that could happen freaked out people, industrialists elsewhere, and so to the point where if you look at a lot of the memorials to people who died in the First World War in Britain, it says 1914 to 1919, and the First World War ended in 1918. It's because troops were sent try and help quash the revolution. Right. So like, it's not, working, the rights of workers have been very hard earned, and many people have lost their lives for those. And to take them lightly, I think is incredibly disrespectful for nothing, nothing else. She says being all soapboxy and serious, but it's true.
It's the thing, like, if Amazon is really the Earth's best employer and the Earth's safest place to work in capital, what are you worried about then? Why are you worried about unions trying to get
exactly. What's wrong with people being unions do other things, like they're a source of help, if nothing else. Yeah. In fact, be really progressive, pay people's union membership for them, like cover it off. You're so good. Give them access to help and advice that's going to help them. I mean, I've
give them what the unions give them, even like okay, give us a lawyer if we need it. Give us, even though there's a problem with that, because the lawyer might be, you don't really want the company's lawyer when you're kind of going up against the company, but. No, and
I do. I don't know if I've told this story on podcast before, but I had a work situation years ago, 2000, something like that. And at the time, I was a member of a union as a sort of IT professional, but it was one my grandfather had recommended. So, you are a member of a union, aren't you, Ivanka? Yes, Grandpa, of course I am. So joined, and probably was the only person in the business that was a member or had any kind of union membership, and I had this very uncomfortable situation with a boss who basically asked me if I would sleep with a client in order to win a contract. Nice. And obviously I responded in the negative, and then he tried to turn it. He was like, how people are. And I phoned the union and told my union rep about the scenario. And he was at the very minimum, it was a good and useful conversation. But he also told me, and it's advice I've passed on to other people, is that if you don't do something about these things, at the very least, write a letter to the management, even if you don't want to go tribunal. You need to do it to help yourself heal. Otherwise, it sort of sits there festering in your mind. So for me, that I had no financial gain from that union membership whatsoever, except a sympathetic ear, which was invaluwe to me.
And sort of an unbiased sympathetic ear, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did. That's why I knew the lawyer thing, was because we have heard about this. That's the only advantage I've heard. Well, it's all I know about unions. It's from what you've told me. I'm going to cut.
It's the delay on the video that freaks my brain out.
Oh dear. Well, we're back on. But I just showed a video of the iceberg in the back of our fridge before I removed it. The next one is going to be me taking it out. But let's. I was going to say, right, the reason Amazon is such an effective company, the things that make Amazon so, I mean, for want of a better word, good as an online retailer, as a business, is I mean, some of it is right place at the right time, right? Like invention of internet, viability of like online payments, all that kind of thing. Jeff was in the right place at the right time for that, so we can sort of take some of it away because of that. But like Amazon is very, very good at like optimizing and measuring and automating and removing craft and making promises to the customers that we just knowing you're going to get something the next day or the same day, and it's going to come and there's going to be a certain level of quality to that service, and just then they're just the effective monopoly status means that they can have their own fleets of delivery drivers and sort of just continue to sort of build on this promise of it's very hard to sort of not buy something from Amazon sometimes, because like, and I try now. I first, if I'm going to buy something, I go to some independent retailer, and then I go, okay, that's not too bad. And then I go to checkout, and it's like £15 delivery, and I'm like, can't I? Curse you, Amazon.
Yeah. It is tricky, and they are a really amazing business. If you're measuring business by how wealthy it's making Jeff Bezos.
But also by the quality of the service that it gives everyone, really. Like, we get really cheap stuff really quickly. Like, it's yes, there's this huge wealth thing, but also, like, the company is a very, like, no one's doing it as well as Amazon. And it sort of makes it difficult to sort of go, well, you need to change how you operate because of human rights. But I still want my cheap goods and I still want my stuff. But yes, I just want to just balance out and say like they are doing an incredible job.
And living in the UK, living in Brighton, you know, I ordered many a thing. I freely confess that I still haven't got rid of my Kindle, which I've had for 12 years, 13 years, whatever it is. It's like, you know, it's very hard to get rid of these products that are really good. But where he says he's the Earth's best employer, that's where I start getting twitchy, because living now on an island where I can't get next day delivery on anything, turns out I don't need it.
Yeah, well, that's
do you know what I mean? Like, can I get food instantly? Yes, I can. Can I get that exact brand of beans I wanted? No. Does it matter? Not really very much at all. You know, like, I've even had things ordered. I had, on the garden story, I bought myself a chopper that chops up all my pruned things so that I make my own mulch, my own wood chippings. And I ordered one, and then they were like, yeah, it's coming. And then 3 or 4 weeks later, they cancelled sorry, we couldn't get one. They cancelled the order. So I went, but it's like, oh, that's a shame. I was looking forward to my chopper, but so we did go on an outing and buy one, which was, went to the mainland. But the stuff just doesn't happen that quickly, and it really doesn't matter.
It's true. It's like, do we really need this stuff injected directly into our veins? Not really. But I mean, for me, like, how can you be the Earth's best employer if the owner is a billionaire and the staff are on minimum wage, barely?
It's like, it's like, okay, great, but
how's
no,
that
it's
a
not
good employer? You're measuring the wrong thing if you think you're the Earth.
Earth's best employer, which is sneaky wording, isn't it? Because it's sort of like,
well, it's sort of leading into the
Earth
climate thing as well, like the climate pledge. He just wants to put language in. I mean, this thing is very sort of massaged and perfected. This letter, you have to.
It's beautiful.
It's like, oh yeah, I mean, it just seems like plain talking, common sense. It all makes a lot of sense. But as soon as you start to go, wait a minute, it's not your job to decide how to fix the climate. It's the government. It's our job. You should be paying your taxes. Blah blah blah. Pay your taxes. This isn't your responsibility. You do your responsibilities because you're a big company, but then you pay your taxes and let us, let the government create jobs, Green New Deal, all these things that will allow like the focus not to have this financial bias to everything.
Absolutely, and I think the idea that it can be driven from private business is really quite, I don't know, icky, because it's like, how I was thinking about this yesterday because I was trying to find some non-poisonous paint. I'm the kind of person that first Googles like what are the impact of, and then I try and find like the thing. And yes, I Google it, all right, but but it's like so you go and you try and find environmentally friendly paint for wood in your garden, and it's like, can't they just ban the stuff that's bad? Like, why do I have to do the work? We managed to ban CFCs, and that's done very well, and that's been effective. So come on, it's like, so you can only claim to be the Earth's best employer if you're actually doing things more broadly for the Earth than compensating for all the shit you're pumping into the world, and because that's a lot of what this is. I want to continue to be a bazillionaire, because he's not even just a billionaire, isn't he? It's something like $114 billion. It's like, that's beyond billionaire. Yeah. And like, I want to continue to be this hoarder, and therefore, in order to support that, I'm going to have to do something. Otherwise, the climate's going to collapse, and then I won't have loads of money.
Money might stop meaning anything. So yeah, I mean, this is all a sort of like, he's certainly justified it to himself.
Yeah.
Right, and he's justified it to lots of people. That I hate the he starts off with that letter of someone going, "Hey, thanks for being so brilliant, Jeff. Amazon is amazing. Oh, good luck going. I hope you get to catch up and relax and do some space exploration." Yeah. It's a very like wealth, power perspective. Everything's just relaxed and easy, isn't it? Well, you get to make jokes about that, and sort of ignore everything. Yeah, you've made some other people rich. Congratulations. But all those people that are generating that wealth, it's not even like. How much of how much of this is generated by things like Amazon Marketplace, where they're just do they ship stuff do they just send stuff to the fulfillment center, or like I don't even know how that works.
I think it depends. But the thing about this, the way he's even talking about people, my biggest problem with it is it just sounds really disrespectful. Yes, we let people take informal breaks throughout their shifts to stretch or get water or use the restroom. I mean,
Wow.
Surely that should
a company
be
boasting about that.
Boasting that you
LBI
let
was like, we let you go to the toilet. That's fine. Stretch your legs. It's like, Are you serious?
I mean, I
In
understand
terms
as
of
well.
dignity.
And the weird thing about it is that you kind of understand that, like, you know, part of that podcast, the New York Times one, was like, oh, but, you know, some people like it because it recognises their work ethic, and it makes it harder for people to be loungers and scroungers and all of that kind of stuff. But it's like...
There's a line somewhere, and it's clearly... And one of the things that makes Amazon so successful is the efficiencies and the automation and the ability to turn human labour into this kind of interchangeable part.
Yeah.
That they can sort of like train efficiently, monitor efficiently, sort of like give them limited responsibilities, manage them by this sort of like cloud of managers that are accessible through an app and all these things. But that it's essentially those people at the bottom are... I watched Nomadland at the weekend, which with Frances McDormand, who's probably the best paying job she has is the Amazon job. So she'll go into the fulfillment center and work there. But in terms of dignity, and there is a sort of like theme of dignity in that, where, you know, she's living in this van and like things are... It's interesting. I would recommend it. It's, you know...
I watched it. We watched it last weekend. It's brilliant.
Just the people that sort of opt out of the system and how hard it is to opt out of the system. And then even then, I think there's the thing that even to survive outside the system, you still rely on the system to some extent. But
for most of them, they were opting out because they couldn't afford to be in.
Yeah, well, yeah.
It was a financial decision.
Yeah, and financial circumstances help, all these things that... And I think like something we can get onto, like, about the Timpson person and the ex-cons kind of thing, that like hiring people out of prison it's an interesting angle on that.
Juxtaposition.
People are because but I was trying to make a point about dignity, really, and about how is the money, like, it seems like dignity is at the bottom of the list in some ways. But do you have more dignity selling rocks by the roadside for someone than like being this sort of like interchangeable part in an Amazon warehouse? You probably like have a better time. You probably feel more human getting to like polish some rocks up. I don't know. I don't know though. I mean, that's probably a terrible job. Like,
I'm quite glad that you've introduced the word dignity, because I was hooked on respect. But I think what makes it uncomfortable is the lack of dignity, really, and to sort of assume, so that interchangeable part, it's just not. It's just what you'd think we were more than that.
Yeah, no.
I mean,
in
that interview, there was... Sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah, sorry. I was interrupting. Go on.
She talked about, I think in one of the articles or podcasts, somebody used the word slave, and you know, it's like, if you have no autonomy and no choice, which basically that measuring thing is saying, then how far apart, you know?
Automating something just scales the whims. It's like the UN poverty. It just scales up the power of the whims of the people that created the system, and it's harder for anyone to change it because there's no sort of like judgment happening in the chain anymore. It's just like, Jeff thought this would work, and so it happened, and now it's just automatically imposed on everyone, and like they've got no one to talk to about the problems that it's causing them and the questions. They've got no one to ask questions of like, does this take away from my time on task? I'm finding it difficult to do this because I'm sort of this far away from this thing, and there's this person's doing this, and you just can't. You don't get to speak person to person, right?
No, I can't imagine living under that stress.
No. Well, I just can't deal with, like, you know, what it takes away is the sort of the possibility for an actual vindictive boss to like that sort of lottery of, is your boss going to be just terrible, and then you're sort of stuck with them. It sort of like automates out some of that, but it creates this different sort of, the way all technology does, it tries to replace something, but it's just replace it with something different. that has the problems that technology has, which is like things just yeah.
You reminded me. I've read Hello World this week by Hannah Fry, which is brilliant. She covers off a lot of this sort of where algorithms kind of trying to replace humans don't necessarily make things better, but she weighs it up. It's very interesting and one to pick up. But the thing I was going to say about the automation was I've lost my train of thought now, because you reminded me of that because you reminded me of the Hello World book. But yeah,
so you replace things with something that sort of ultimately, it sort of behaves in a different way, and it doesn't necessarily it sort of improves some aspects, but like creates new problems, I guess.
I've remembered now what it was. It's like when talking about the pressure being constantly measured. We've talked about this before. It's been a long time since I've been in a job where I had to be at a particular place in a particular place at a particular time, but I have been waiting for a tube when the tubes have been horribly delayed, and seen people really freak out because they're not going to get to work on time and they're going to lose their job. And it's like the sort of rigidity of those rules don't account for the world.
And this is a problem with systems in general, isn't it? It's if you don't have some sort of human ability to make a judgment at some point in a system, then you just end up something that the people like push up against the edges of and have problems with those hard edges in it. So it's a deep generalized problem of human existence and society. But the way Amazon would like us to believe that they're doing this sort of brilliant, perfect job of it, but it's there's clearly. And if you take away the ability for the staff if you sort of stop people unionizing and being able to have some sort of other alternative perspective than the company who is incentivized to sort of maximize their profits from you, and not really for your, like, they'll look after you to the extent that it keeps you healthy, that you can keep making the money, but sort of in terms of going a bit deeper into the sort of dignity, it's harder. I'm going to. The thing I was going to say about Frances McDormand in Nomadland is she's constantly resisting charity, and I think it's on that basis of dignity. As soon as you say, "Oh, there's a homeless shelter over here, and you can get some free food," it sort of takes away your sense that you are a valid, dignified person who has made a choice to live in a van and made a choice, that I'm going to be cold. Yes, I can deal with that. Please don't patronize me with charity, because people want to feel useful, and they want to they don't want to feel like they're a drain on society if they can avoid it. But I think there's plenty of research that shows that that's like people feel awful when they have no sort of agency and they're not able to contribute anything.
It was I did that. One of those things that stuck with me in that film where she meets that child in the shop. Then goes, "Oh, I've heard you're homeless." She says, "Oh no, I'm houseless."
Yeah,
it's like, which is kind of a different thing, but yeah.
It's like, get that stigma off me. Do you want to talk about that the Timpson guy and how he approaches? Because that sort of touches on the whole measurement thing.
It does, yeah. He's like, there's this. It came up this week, so I'm sure we've already talked about Timpsons at some point. But if you don't know,
I don't think we have.
They are basically a retail chain, UK retail chain. Mostly do things like key cutting, shoe repair, dry cleaning, that kind of stuff. And they, I hope, famously employ people who have been in prison. Not exclusively, but they don't reject people just because they've been in prison. And they also do some nice things like if you're going to a job interview, you're unemployed, they will clean your suit for free. There's various things they do, and he's on Twitter. He's quite human. His father started the business. I think it was his father started the business, but the son is definitely in charge now, and he's but he comes across very well on Twitter. He's a trustee or chair or something of the Prison Reform Trust. But they his parents fostered a lot of children when he was a kid, and that's, I think, even though he's clearly had a privileged life from a point of view, from a financial point of view, his parents kind of obviously made sure that their children were a bit more aware that it's not that simple for everybody. But he wrote this in this times of measuring and counting, having data and using data. He put out this article. I only came across it this week or last, talking about how they don't capture loads of data at Timpson's. He asks every store, every shop to manually report the day's takings every day via some sort of online form. And that's really the only number that they are interested in. He, as the owner of the business, he's interested in what the bank balance is every day. And so his finance team send him the bank balance today and what it was this time last year. And that's those are his main data figures.
Reminds me that I've got a lot to learn about cash flow, because this does seem to be the secret of good business. It's not like future. It's just like, how much money have you got in the bank right now? Because if you haven't got money in the bank right now, you can't really do very much. Then you've
not really got, And I think it's not bad. I mean, someone gave me that advice years ago regarding my personal finances. It's like, so-and-so's always got money, but every morning he looks at his bank balance. I was like, Nick does it as well. It's like, it's like weighing yourself. We've talked about that. It's like, okay, maybe I can't have extra, do extra shopping today, or woohoo.
Well, I've got Monzo as my main bank, and actually, I do look every day because there's a little green ring, and I try and sort of keep under the, you're ahead of your spending now. So I've just sort of got it all set up so that I'm using it properly. So I'm £15 ahead of my thing as of today. But it's always hard. It's sort of it's just boring. It made me realise, I was talking to Sharon about it, she waits till payday and then buys the things she's been waiting to buy. But if I do that, I'm really behind the curve at the start of the month. So actually it would be better for me to wait until I've accumulated something like my balance as the month goes on, and then spend that once I have it, instead of sort of spending from the top. So anyway, and that's interesting. It's good to check. I still check.
I still get that. I've talked about this for from sort of student and early job days. Whenever I put a card in a cash point, I sort of feel a sense of relief when I hear that. Apparently that isn't it counting money, but anyway, mate, I'm
what is it?
I don't know. Somebody told me it's just kind of like fakery. I don't know. It's probably some myth. I've not Googled it. I didn't check. I don't know. Anyway, going back to Mr. Timpson,
yes.
I will go out of my way to go and get a key card at Timpson's. It's like, but it sounds just enormously human, I think.
Yeah.
Is he rich? Can he afford to do his life? Probably can.
Was that the end? Yeah. So he just looks. He wants the balance, but he also wants the customer feedback thing. What was it? There was this one other metric, right? There was some feedback thing. But I mean, I am going to say, service. I am going to say though, I think it's pretty. The idea that you're going to hire someone out of prison is news. Isn't the point of prison that you're rehabilitated and you've paid for your crimes? So the fact that anyone should even have to what's the word I want? Divulge. A criminal history, I find pretty disgusting. And the fact that you can be excluded from jobs for something that you've paid for. I think that's a real. I think it's and it's just accepted that that's okay. So if someone makes a mistake, they're just tarred with that for the rest of their life. And then also talking about that's the thing, the protests about. There's this new UK the Tories are trying to get through this thing where they can basically they give the police powers to arrest you for being loud and annoying, noisy and annoying. Like that's now a criteria for like they're trying to criminalize that as part of protesting, which is like the thin end of it's like the end of the wedge whereby, okay, now we can't protest things and it's all over for democracy kind of thing. But what that's doing, one of the biggest problems of that is that it could end up, a lot of people are doctors and people that if they have a criminal record, they lose their job immediately.
Yeah.
Because, and so it's sort of, it just keeps loads of people at home that would otherwise be protesting. So, yeah, this whole, it's a bit of a tangent, but this whole, it seems to me like, isn't the idea that you've paid for your crimes, or is it that we know that prison is a place that only helps people get better at crime?
I think there's always that. Yeah, so there's always the argument of appropriateness and what it says about you as a personality, and like what kind of a crime with it. If everyone always jumps to paedophile working in a school, like there are these, but there's certain things. So I think that is a whole topic which we've got. But the idea of redemption, I think, is lost, and it goes against cancel culture completely. It's like, if people have done that, there's no opportunity for redemption in there, but that's a
I think what I mean, this is definitely a subject, but I kind of keep wanting to throw my things in, which is one like the way the sort of right-wing media portrays cancel culture is kind of different to the way it actually works in practice, and there is forgiveness, and there is, it's not this like hardline thing all the time. There are conversations, but also just the fact that like criminality is sort of a racist construct. Like people are disproportionately racistly prosecuted for crimes, so that it just like biases things in one way, because we just criminalize race and criminalize poverty in a way that sort of just keeps people down. But
that's why Hello World is it's definitely a good read. But
Bezos letter. Back to Bezos letter.
Bezos is sitting there, talking about sitting on his mountain of wealth, his greedy pile of cash, going, well, we pay people, we give people more than those other people that are
you're comparing
also
yourself.
Mistreating people. It's like, why don't you compare yourself to something? Why don't you invent a new thing? Jeff Bezos, with all your cleverness, you're clearly very clever. You built up a brilliant business. Fucking put it to some good.
Well, no, but that's what he says he's doing with his Earth stuff. But really, it's pay your taxes, right? Like, and actually, instead of comparing what you're doing to what other much less successful companies are doing, or companies with much less of a bank balance than you, instead of comparing yourself to them, how about you actually try and visualize a world as it could be, and how you could sort of move towards that, instead of seeing what at the end of the day, it's like, what's the bare minimum you can get away with, and just keep the rest. That's still very much the mentality. And it's just that it's the efficiency mindset as well. It's like, how much can I keep, and what's the minimum amount I have to give other people to squeeze value out of them.
It's pretty disgusting.
So yes, there we go. We've come out predictably enough. We should address his, like, the universe wants you to be normal, and we want to not be normal. Well, there's differentiation is survival, and the universe wants you to be typical. Yeah, we know this, but you're not. You're choosing which way to differentiate, and there's many different ways you could be not normal. That would be a whole lot more valuable to the people like that you
Mr.
employ.
Timpson.
Yeah, try and think a bit more about like have a bit of imagination when it comes to what the human experience could be beyond barely scraping by and treated like robots. How about that?
Yeah, I had this conversation with my daughter the other day. I said, well, your friend gave you that thing. We really should choose something to give her. Mummy, I'd much prefer getting presents. Like, yes, that is but it's like, but imagine how happy you feel when you got that present. How about you do that for your friend? And it's like the next day, do you know what I mean? It's like,
takes a bit of practice to realise that the giving is it gives you some. There's the dopamine or whatever it is. There's dopamine in the other one. Anyway, that's on that note.
On that note,
You'll feel good, Jeff. I feel fine, thanks. I'm going to the moon. All right, fuck off then. Thanks for listening. If you like the podcast, go to grandpodcast.com and buy all of our loot and sign up for our weekly loot box. And this podcast is sponsored by various companies that take your credit card details and email you relentlessly every month. And also, why not build a website with this easy-to-use tool? Also, why not, there's this mattress that you can get and they deliver it to you. And if you don't like it, you can return it after 30 days. None of that. If you like the podcast, just go to make sure you're subscribed. You can support us on Patreon, and I'm going to send you a freaking mug. It's a nice mug. I love my mug.
I need a new mug.
No, you broke yours.
No, I didn't bring one.
You didn't
I didn't
bring
think I was
it!
going to be here for 65 years. I was going for a couple of months.
I'm personally going to send you a mug for whatever Patreon contribution you give. I'll sign it if that's even a thing. I don't
Can
care.
I just say, if you're sending it out of the UK, write unsolicited gift on it, please.
Unsolicited gift, okay. Where can people find you on the internet, Ivanka?
People can find me at Ivanka on Twitter.
You can find me at Michael Forrest on everything. SoundCloud. How about that? Find me on SoundCloud at Michael Forrest. And
find me in my garden.
Ivanka in her garden. Find me in my office, slaving away under an unreasonable boss who I call Mr. Peanut. That's my alter ego.
Sounds scary.
Cracks the whip. All right, and so yeah. So is there anything else to worry about? I don't think so.
Be happy. Do something nice.
We'll see you next time. Get vaccinated. Oh, I've had mine.
Well done.
And
I'm still waiting.
Good. Some people are still waiting. But yeah, we'll see you next time. So bye, 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 bye.
Well, I'm sorry about the and.